When a situation where you find that a person look at the situation,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying. Now, we will be taking a look at the dailies on Daybreak, beginning with the Daily Trust newspaper. Very interesting, really, revelations this morning on the Daily Trust. The first one, you could see up there, sharing the shade with Turji, and that's a piece by Abdulaziz, talking about his encounter with the bandit leader, Bello Turji. It's a very interesting story to get an insight. You know, go to page 12 to 37. Very extensive and detailed, you know, narration of his experience and his encounter with the bandit leader and his interviews, his interaction with him, what they think. You know, you can get literally by reading this, you can get into the head, you know, of the bandits to know what exactly they think and why they are doing what they are doing. And so it's a very, very interesting piece. Today's Daily Trust, I'm sure, will give you all of that. And I bet you no paper can give you that details as much as a Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story talks about food crisis looms as fertilizer price soars ahead raining season. You'd see the writers. It says Russia-Ukraine conflict may worsen situation. Experts propose way forward. So you'd want to, you know, have a sense of what to do even as we approach the rainy season here. The costs of, or rather the price of fertilizer is skyrocketing, and that's likely going to have a direct implication on food production in this season. And then you'd see the pictorial there shows you women queue to fetch water at Tokulu village, Buhari Area Council in the FCT. Below that, uncertainty over Nigeria Air 3 weeks, over Nigeria Air, 3 weeks to take off. So recall that back in 2021, the Minister of Aviation promised Nigerians that the national carrier will commence operation by April this year. And this is March, 3 weeks to the time. What's happening? What are the updates? You would find the details of that on page 26. And then at the very bottom, you see the stories that says, hobby, wife, 5-month-old child kidnapped in Abuja. Very tragic one. FG gets Ukraine's not to evacuate Nigerians stranded in Sumi. And then you also have Niger IDP seek refuge at hydropower station facilities. These are the stories on the front page of Daily Trust this morning.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories on the Punch newspaper this morning. The Punch leads with a story about World Bank projects 4 trillion naira 2022 fuel subsidy. Experts predict more loans. There you go. And the writers say Nigeria could spend 360 billion naira monthly on subsidy, says World Bank. Federal government will borrow more to finance rising fuel subsidy payments, and this is according to experts. NNPC releases additional 381.8 million liters of fuel. Queues lessen. Well, I don't know about that because on my way here, I still saw, you know, petrol queues, and but I really hope that, you know, this comes to an end. Mm-hmm. Okay, some other stories right at the top on page 35. Pension assets rose by 190 billion in January, hit 13.61 trillion. And other stories right on the Punch on page 11. Oshibajo, others in charge during my UK checkup. And this is according to President Muhammadu Buhari as he leaves for the UK. Page 2, implement 2009 agreement fund or short versities, says ASU. And you'd also see the story about APC chairman meets today, uncertainty surrounds zonal congresses. And there's a very, beautiful pictorial there that shows you servicemen of Ukrainian Territorial Defense Valerie and Lesia during their wedding at a checkpoint in the outskirts of Kiev on Sunday. Just as the whole tension is happening, in that
in the midst, in the midst of all of that. Something romantic going on,
right?
In the midst of conflict. Well, that's some very interesting angle to the whole story, actually. All right. Well, let's take a look at some more stories here. We have the This Day newspaper also. It leads with the story that says, in dramatic move, Buhari orders Buni's removal as Malami. SGF urge caution. And then you'd also see other stories at the top there above the headline. It says, agriculture remains backbone of Nigeria's economy, says Central Bank of Nigeria. Other ones, below the pictorial there, you see Nigerian students in Ukraine cry for help, demand safe exit from war-torn country. So we still have Nigerians in Ukraine. Recall that all the ones that have been evacuated were, in the neighboring countries to Ukraine, either Romania, Hungary, and Poland. Now, the ones that we are talking about are actually inside Ukraine. There are those who have not been able to make their way to the borders. Of course, owing to the fact that we've had all of these issues or stories about discrimination. You find situations where taxi drivers will kind of dupe them, because that's what I call it. You take someone, promising to take the person to the border, you get to a certain point, and then you stop and you say, well, I can't exit, beyond this point. But what is left is just a short distance. You could track it. That's the story of many of them. And then they get to find out that when they begin to trek, it's almost like a day-long journey, for them to walk. So I've had that experience from many of the people there. So it's really a sad one. Hopefully, we'll be able to evacuate those ones within Ukraine, just like now that the federal government has gotten the approval of Ukraine to be able to do that. Now, let's take a look at other stories here. There's the issue about crude oil price surges to 13-year high of $129 per barrel. Of course, this has some connection with the Russia-Ukraine crisis, I believe. Well, that's that for This Day newspaper this morning.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories, excuse me, on the Guardian newspaper this morning. New national carrier may take off Q2 as bid opens this week. No requests for AOC, ATL yet, NCAA insists. And then right at the top on page 6, you see unknown gunmen comb Anambra communities for weapons, others. And then there's a pictorial there that shows you Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma and bishops of the Catholic Church during the opening of a one-week Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria at St. Gabriel Chaplaincy in Abuja yesterday. And then you find other stories on page 3. PDP, APC trade tackles over more destructive party to Nigerians. World Health Organization releases first malaria vaccine recommendation guideline. Oh, that's good news. We need that.
Sure.
But I heard, this is going to come, for just for younger people. They've not really had the one for older people yet,
yes.
But that's really a breakthrough for us. You'd also see other stories on The Guardian. Arewa youths warn against political conspiracy on fuel scarcity. And then you'd also see Gowon Mahama Sultan extol Awolowo's virtues, seeks transformational leadership. These are some of the major stories on The Guardian this morning.
Now, on The Nation newspaper, it's about politics. APC zoning panel submits report amid disagreement. You'd also see leaders split over key NWC positions. Buhari, we will overcome crisis. Now, don't forget that the APC convention is just about 2 weeks from now. It's going to be March 26th. So just a few weeks from now, and then this is happening within the APC. At the top, of the Nation newspaper, other stories there says Oshun 2023, PDP boils over primaries delegates list. And then you find 1.5 million flee Ukraine to escape Russia bombings. 1,076 Nigerians back home. UBA posts 153 billion naira full year profit. Eko, Ijora, marine bridges undergo integrity test. Then you'd see CBN's Naira dollar policies not working, says presidential advisor. So these are some of the stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
Okay, let's take one more on the Blueprint newspaper this morning. The Blueprint leads with the story, 20 days to D-Day. APC's pre-convention activities yet to take off. And the writers there say aspirants wait on Abdurazak's zoning committee. March 5th screening date not met, others too. Zonal aspirants yet to pick forms would shock critics with our convention. And this is according to President Muhammad Buhari. And you find other stories on the Blueprint also. Ukraine, another 306 Nigerians arrive as federal government moves to rescue trapped students. Ukrainian refugees rise above 1.5 million. That's quite huge, and that seems to me, like we're going to have a humanitarian crisis here.
True. Well, 2022 obviously is coming with a lot of uncertainty for us, especially we are, everyone is thinking, oh, we are getting over the whole COVID-19 crisis thing, but here we go. Russia and Ukraine is on the one hand. We are also seeing increase in the prices of fertilizer, and the stories are not looking good at all. The issue of fuel scarcity, of course, is hitting Nigerians, and I believe that will definitely have a very, very devastating impact on our economy. By the time the NBS releases, the GDP growth rate, I'm sure we'll get to see, how much of an impact this fuel scarcity has been on our economy. Well, let's get perspectives on some of the stories on our front pages this morning. We have in the studio Nelson Yakubu Omonu. He is the publisher, the Summit Post, and he will be giving us perspectives on this. Thank you for joining Daybreak this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right. Well, very interesting, really, some of the stories that we are having. Obviously, the Russia-Ukraine crisis is having impact not just only, on the oil and gas sector, but even, food production. One of the reasons for the likely, or I would say the increase in the price of fertilizer, and Nigerian farmers are also, raising alarm. There's likely to be some kind of food crisis, making the issues that we have at hand even worse, because already we have food inflation,
yes,
with us here.
Now, the way the global system is structured, whatever affects is just like the nose and eyes. Whatever affects one, affect the other. Now, especially for dependent economies, sorry to say this, for dependent economies like what Nigeria is having, most of the things we need to really keep our economy running, we are dependent on other economies, as into importation. Now that the price of oil has reached all-time high, now the problem we have to contend with is, now the first challenge is we don't refine. We depend on importation of refined products to use back here. That is to say that what we are supposed to have enjoyed from this crisis, so to speak, now we will be plunged back to, there is a headline there about the World Bank projecting that we might use whopping 360 billion for fuel subsidy. That is because our refineries are not working. It's not different from what is happening to fertilizer, because we have to depend on importation, because our local production is not enough to really service our population. And now, this is going to continue, because as at yesterday, in a discussion with President Erdogan of Turkey, the position of the Russian leader Putin is very clear. that he will only stop when the Ukrainian army said, we are no longer fighting. And we're not seeing that coming. That is to say that we should expect a very prolonged, because the Ukrainians are determined.
They are determined.
They are determined.
From some of the pictures we are seeing
Yes.
on the Punch, people are even getting married right on the front line,
That's right.
without even caring.
It's like they are in a relationship. Then the onslaught is coming. There is general atmosphere of uncertainty. They don't know if what is going to happen next. But to fulfill maybe the love they've shared and all that, please let's go ahead and do this in case anything happens. Okay,
right. That's very interesting.
So the crisis in Ukraine is a sore point, and like you mentioned earlier, 2022 is coming with a lot of challenges, and that is one. And in line with it will surprise you to know that U.S., the leader of the West, that against Russia's invasion of Ukraine, they are still importing fuel. They are still buying Russian fuel. Yes, they are still buying.
Russia is a major supplier of that product.
Now,
about 40% in Europe, for instance.
We expect that with this now, to stifle what is coming to Putin now, to service this war, you withdraw what you're buying.
What is surprising to some analysts is that there haven't been any sanction on the oil and gas in Russia yet, and this is happening.
No, that is the point. During a press statement, press conference in the White House, he did mention very clearly that they don't want to compound the energy crisis in Europe, because Russia, most of the Western Europe, they depend on Russia to fulfill their energy needs. Until they are able to find another replacement and that is not possible within the shortest possible time. So they will have to continue to depend on, that is to say that you have announced sanctions, but you are still feeding the same person. You are buying product from him so that he has money to prosecute the war. And you are against the war. That is what President Zelensky is saying. That is like the commitment of the West to dealing with the situation in Ukraine is not very clear. So we will get this very clear, that the situation in Ukraine is like when two elephants fight. And the grass suffers. Yeah, that is the Ukraine now, because in this case, the problem is not about Ukraine, but the problem is about U.S. and the West expanding beyond to Putin's territory. And sincerely,
the grass is suffering, and Africa is, part of the grass that we are talking about here.
That's the point, because our economy depends on the West to survive.
Talking about dependence, we saw the COVID-19. It came as an emergency for us, and then we're also seeing this, and we're not prepared for it. Shouldn't this be like a wake-up call for us to have some sort of backup plan?
We don't ever. There's nothing that surprises us anymore. In Africa, we're always, everything is always taking us by surprise. And see, whether we like it or not, like global crisis like we have in Ukraine, that is affecting every sector of our economy. Now, we must, it will interest you, after this crisis, even if the crisis is solved and everything returns to normal, we will still not be prepared for the next one that is to happen. That is the point. So it's like a cycle. Africa will have to continue to bear the brunt of what they don't know.
Now, talking about preparedness, yet again, the Russia-Ukraine crisis taught us some lessons I hope we've learned anyway. The president has had to approve a whopping $8.5 million for the evacuation of Nigerians. Would that be the same if we have had our national carrier?
That's the point here. But thank God for businesses like airlines like Airpeace and I think there's one about Air Max. But the point we should continue to, our leaders must be, let me commend Daily Trust. for coming up with this in-depth story about the likelihood of failure of that promise, because we have about 3 weeks to go, and there is nothing on ground to show that this is going to.
The Guardian is reporting, though, that the national carrier may take off in the second quarter as bid opens this week. So
we are waiting.
Yes. So second quarter, not first quarter, anyways. Even though it's April, so April falls within the second quarter as well. But how soon within the second quarter is the issue?
We are waiting. If you promise is no longer new to us. Promises, we've had too many waiting for their fulfillment. Let's hope that this is part of what we are going to celebrate. But spending that much to be able to evacuate our citizens trapped in... See, there are a lot of issues. They are connected. Now, one is the education sector. Now, we have, I think, over 5,000 students in Nigeria schooling in Ukraine alone. Yeah, Ukraine alone. That is Ukraine.
It's massive.
But it's massive. Now, at the time when our lecturers, ASU, is on strike in Nigeria, and government is like working out on students and all that. See, it's very clear where your heart is. That is where what Good Book said, that where your heart is, that is where your treasure will be. It seems we have not come to terms with the value of education, and as such, the money that's supposed to be plunged into education, we see it as like is a waste.
So yes. I guess ASU is right, by saying, Nigeria has not, is not getting its priorities right.
We are not getting our priorities. At the same time, that is when we are donating $1 million. That is what Nigerians are, is piercing the heart of Nigerians. You're donating $1 million to Afghanistan. At a time that your children cannot get good education, so to speak, and they are in other countries, they are trapped because of war and all, outbreak of crisis and all that, and the education back home is suffering. So the whole thing is, we are here to get our priorities right. We must start from education. Any nation that treats education like some second, because we have not prioritized education. And that is why, if they say politics, you see our leaders plunge heavy, they can get that money from anywhere. But if it comes to education, it's as if, maybe, what are these people talking about? Why agreement? You deliberately, in order to buy time, sign agreement you know that you cannot implement. And in any case, why are we not implementing it? Let us put our money where, because whether we like it or not, education is the future. In a state in United States, what we are spending as budget in Nigeria is not up to what a county in the United States will budget for education. And that is what the whole country of 200 million people.
But the issues are quite complicating, really. Yeah. Now, if you take a look at the lead story on the Punch newspaper this morning, the World Bank is projecting 4 trillion naira 2022 fuel subsidy. And experts are predicting that we are likely to take more loans, to be able to do this. Now we have the issue of ASU on the other hand. What are the chances that government is likely to release whatever funds ASU is asking, looking at how the issues that we are dealing with right now? Or should we just take away the subsidy and just face the reality?
Politicians will always be, after the passage of PIA Act, so Petroleum Industry Act. So we expect that government should follow up on its implementation immediately. So let's get done with this once and for all. If subsidy is removed, whatever wants to happen, let it happen. Let people source for fuel wherever they can get it and buy at any price they can get. And I think by the time we brace the odd, you'll be surprised that, come to think of it, in the last 1 month,
we are already suffering.
We don't know. In fact, we are even buying more than if subsidy is removed eventually, you get it. So we no longer want subsidy. Government, but politicians will always. 2023 election is around the corner, so we're buying time to see how to postpone subsidy, because government has officially postponed its implementation and set up a implementation committee to like do groundwork for its implementation. But we want Nigerians want immediate implementation of this Petroleum Industry Act, so that when subsidy is removed, and we no longer, let's see where government will tell us that the money that is supposed to be meant for education is being plunged into subsidy payment. We have to, in any case, what is the volume of consumption? What is the volume of petrol, refined petrol that we consume every day? Do we have these statistics that can help us to determine really what, because if you ask me, what of the ones that are going through the borders to neighboring countries? Government is paying subsidy, a lot of funny things.
Right.
We are really not getting it right.
Okay.
First, let's determine the volume of our consumption realistically. Let's have a dependable, statistics.
How do we even do that? We don't have that.
We don't have
then the borders to something else. You see, maybe jerry cans and all that, trucks going out of the country on fuel that government has already paid subsidy for its citizens. So let's get done with this once and for all, and we'll move from here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's talk security. We're seeing that IDPs in Niger State are seeking refuge in hydropower facilities. I know that Niger State does not have, a standard, say, IDP camp that people that have been internally displaced can, come together and stay. Some of them, were actually living on roadsides, some in neighboring communities and all of that. But hydropower facilities, is that really safe?
I've closed, I've covered what is happening in Niger State, especially Niger, very closely for a while. It's really pathetic. And our heart goes out to the people, those communities, if it's Rafi or something that have been attacked. What they are going through is indescribable. The kind of emergency that authorities are supposed to, while we are discussing this, some people don't even have anything over their heads, just like these people. You go to hell, these are facilities that are not built to accommodate people. Now they are left with no choice but to 200 people displaced every day, and this thing keeps happening. Where the security agencies are on their trail, they are pursuing them and all that. We can't make, I think even the state government, to the best of my knowledge, is overwhelmed. Yes, is overwhelmed by the kind of attack, incessant attack.
Is it overwhelmed really? Because listening to Governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna State recently, when he was addressing State House correspondents at the villa, he pointed to something very critical, and he boldly said, confidently said, that they know where all the camps of the bandits are.
That's right.
They have their phone numbers. They listen to their conversations. So they literally have intelligence, enough information to take them out. And what he was suggesting was that what has been happening was that if you attack a certain camp, they will now, run to other parts of, the northwestern parts of the country. And then if you go to, say, Zamfara, for instance, they will run to Katsina. When you go to Katsina, they will run to Niger. When you go to Niger, and then like that. So what he was suggesting, simultaneous bombardment of the camps, at the same time, such that once you are raining fire on them in Niger, you are doing the same in Katsina, you are doing the same in Zamfara, and as one of the ways to take them out.
Tell you what,
are they really overwhelmed if you listen to that?
I mean, like I was, that statement was in respect of like in Niger State. Of recent, the attack there has been overwhelming. But let me say this: if you are going to, no governor has the constitutional power to direct, I think, a police, even even correctional officers to do anything. It will have the buck stops on the president's table. As a statesman that he is, if you don't want to leave the situation we are in now, if you don't want to leave it behind, by the time it's going to hand over next year. Now, the truth is, we have the resources to prosecute this war within the shortest possible time. You don't, most of the forest they are talking about, where is the forest? In an age that there are technologies that can aid you to track movements. Okay, if we say if bombardment is taking place in Zamfara, these people move to Niger State, for instance. Are they not going to? Is there a plane that is going to fly them? Of course, they must pass through a route.
The forest, yes.
Pass through forest, and we should employ technology, for crying out loud, to track movements. Like what is happening in Ukraine, you see that planes are being guided, bombers are being guided, precision, to go to their target. If we are tracking movements within social axis, for instance, I'm not a security personnel, but I believe so strongly that with the possibilities of technology today, we cannot say that there's no deep forest in the north that we just boldly say when people are moving from one state, not just one person, not two. Mass of people moving from one place to the other. We cannot track movement using satellites and start dropping and start. Peace has failed as far as the bandit concern. Peace has failed, and then we must maximally deploy the instrument of states to tell these people that Nigeria is a governed. Most time we talk about ungoverned spaces. Within our country, no.
Well, we have them, isn't it? We have some of these ungoverned spaces, really.
Technology can help us to
bridge the gap.
To bridge the gap, because as it is, if you employ technology, you can monitor movement in Zamfara.
Well, it's quite tricky and complicated.
It is.
Because in that same address, the governor, because I will take his own address as as an example, he referenced the fact that Kaduna State is one of the first states to purchase drones, for the purpose of dealing with bandits and all of that. But somehow we just don't get to see the end of it. So we'll continue to spotlight that and follow through. Thank you so much for coming on Daybreak this morning and sharing your perspectives with us.
Thank you. No. Thank you for having me.
We've been speaking with Nelson Yakubu Omonu. He is the publisher at the Summit Post, giving us perspectives on the dailies on Daybreak this morning. We'll take a short breather now, and then when we come back, the show will continue. Please stay.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that